Good morning. I haven't been on here for a little while. I've not been in the best place, so I just haven't made any videos recently. But what I want to talk about is the invisibility side of autoimmune illnesses, conditions, stuff like that. Anyone that has, a condition that is on the inside. And from the invisibility, I want to talk about masking as well. So basically, you might hear the phrase invisible illness thrown around a bit quite often when people are about, in public and things like that. You see them and you think to yourself, okay, they're looking all right. But the times that you actually see them in public are the only times they feel good enough to be out in public. So you don't see them the 99% of the rest of the time when they're really struggling with, whether it's pain, fatigue, or whatever. So you're only seeing a little snippet of them. So for me, I'll tell you my experience. You'll see the little snippet of me, which is now. And after this, I'm having an okay day today. It's all right. There's bits of pain, which I normally get, bits of stiffness, which I normally get. But the rest of it is, okay. I will be a bit tired in a couple of hours and then I'll have a sleep. And then later on, I'll wake up again. I'll probably have a bit of dinner, relax, take it easy, do some more stretches, and then bedtime. So, you don't see any of that. The public don't see any of that. So that's kind of what it's on the face of things, what it's like to have an invisible illness. It can be quite frustrating in that, you do get, comments that the intent behind them is positive. Like, oh, you're looking fantastic today. Oh, you're doing really well. It's great. It's great to have the positive, like the boosts of, whether it be boosts of confidence or, anything like that. Absolutely great. There is that, obviously, that other side to it, which a lot of people don't recognize, though, which is that you put in masses of effort to get to that point of being, looking good in public, and then there's the come down afterwards. So it's quite interesting from an invisible illness. So I'll be interested to see if anybody else has had, sort of what sort of comments you get, whether you feel that they're positive, negative, anything like that. But it's always nice to have the positives. Don't get me wrong. I love that. Anybody that says, you're looking great is, to me, it's like, I never used to get that, so let's take it. So it kind of brings me onto the masking side of things. And masking is something that is done a lot where the conditions that you have may be physical, mental, or whatever else, emotional, whatever. And it can be, an illness, condition, disease, whatever. But the masking side of things is putting on that facade, putting on that brave face, basically. And you're putting so much effort into it. At the end of it, you have an absolute crash at the other end of it when you stop masking. Unfortunately, what that does is, from a masking perspective, it gives a lot of people a kind of false sense of what you're capable of, what your level and tolerance of are of things like pain, things like that. So my son, who has ADHD and autism, he's well on the spectrum there. He masks all the time when he's at school, for example. So, we had parents' evening recently, and the first thing they said was, "Oh, he's really joining in. He's like, he'll do this, that, and the other. But then when you put him in this scenario over here, he's quiet as a mouse. He's totally, he doesn't respond at all." So the masking bit is the joining in. So he'll kind of shout out answers at school because he thinks he has to, not because he thinks he's got the right answer, for example. So it's that kind of thing. And he doesn't like getting, the answers wrong or anything like that. So it's a difficult thing for him to do. From a pain perspective, from my perspective, I can just tell you from pure experience that I mask when I'm out in public. I won't go, "Oh, hi, yeah, got really high pain today. Yeah, look at me." Absolutely not. If someone asks, fine, yeah, I'll tell them what it's like. But a lot of the time it'll be like, "Okay, yep, how are you doing?" Fine. I'm not going to get into conversation 9 times out of 10 about, the ins and outs of how things are, like a shoulder or a wrist or a kneecap, ankle, whatever, bum cheek, anything. I just don't get into those conversations. Or I do, but very rarely. So it would just be like, "Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm all right. Or today, good day. Yeah." Or, "Yeah. Okay." Just kind of like, just playing it kind of easy. And that again gives people a false sense of how you're doing. And I think what's happening is that masking is, I'm seeing a lot of it on TikTok mainly. I've still been hovering around it and, checking out things. There's a lot of comments that I see where, people say, "Oh, you look fine to me." And yeah, that's the idea. The invisible illness is invisible for a reason. You look fine because it's invisible. So yeah, you get a lot of people that don't really understand the idea behind an invisible illness. And of course, from my perspective, if somebody says to me, "Oh, you look fine to me," partially my fault for masking, you know what I mean? So, I'm not masking now. I'm okay now. Yeah, like I said, bits of pain here and there, but I'm still managing to do this. But there we have it. That's a kind of little another rambling video, really. I thought I'd update you all, make sure that you're all still here and doing what you should be doing, which is whatever you do. So there we go. All right. Well, as usual, come and say hi. If I haven't seen you for a while on here, I do apologize. Just been, not in the mood really. Okay. So count yourselves lucky you've seen me again.